Thank you so much for joining me here at the drama-free true crime destination. Please be Thank you so much for joining me here at the drama-free true crime destination. Please be sure to follow Bethea'S Byte Reloaded all over social media and support the channel through PayPal and too, but this is still Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. This is the final word. I'm Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw. My apologies for the way the intros have gone off. And I am trying to navigate my way with all my captions and all, but still, welcome one, welcome all. Welcome to the drama-free true crime destination. And hush. See what I mean? Now wants to act right. Okay. Anyway, welcome to Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. Welcome to the final word. I have 2 days worth of stories to work with. So what I'm gonna do is give you half tonight, the other half tomorrow evening for Saturday night's main event. Yes, I'm calling it now. I'm doing half tonight, half tomorrow night for Saturday night main event. And I hope you can join me then for it. In the meantime, I want to get you all to, if I can get a hold of it without any problems, I want to get you all to my opening statement for tonight. Tonight, we close a week defined by violence that came from inside the home, inside the family, and inside the circle of trust. A week where the justice system moved forward in some cases, and in others, we were forced to confront the raw truth of how quickly a life can be taken, how deeply a community can be shaken, and how far investigators must go to uncover what really happened. We watched courts hand down 3 consecutive life sentences to an Ohio man who beat 4 people to death with a lead pipe. A reminder that brutality doesn't always come with a motive, but justice still demands accountability. We saw a South Carolina jury convict a woman of murdering 3 generations of her own family. A case that sat silent for nearly a decade before the truth rose to the surface. We learned of a Texas mother and her 2 young sons killed in a fire set by a scorned ex-boyfriend. A teenager waking up to smoke, flames, and a nightmare he will carry for the rest of his life. And we saw the justice system continue its slow, deliberate march from Oregon to New Jersey, from cold case breakthroughs to motions for new trials, from missing persons investigations to hate-motivated attacks carried out in broad daylight. Across every headline, one theme kept repeating. The danger wasn't distant. It was personal. It came from the people closest to the victims. It came from anger, obsession, desperation, and the refusal to accept boundaries. And in every case, the cost was paid by families who never saw it coming. Tonight, we walk through these stories not to sensationalize them, but to understand them. Because understanding is the first step toward vigilance. And vigilance is the first step towards safety. And so, in the words of Julie Grant, that's my opening statement. Let me know if you like it, and you know how to hit me up. Facebook, X, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and by email. All right. Now, let's go ahead and get going here. We are going to kick things off with one of those investigations currently going on right now involving singer David. David spelled D4VD. All right. Let me go ahead and split the screen with that and me. There we go. All right. Here's what's going down with that case. Court documents are offering new insight into the investigation after a teenager's body was found dismembered in an abandoned truck. Celeste Rivas Hernandez's body was found on September 8th, 2025, after a report of a foul smell coming from a Tesla, which had been towed to a police parking lot days earlier. The vehicle was registered to recording artist David Burke, known professionally as David, again spelled D, the number 4, VD. Private investigator Steve Fisher shared the court file on social media on Wednesday, revealing new details about the condition in which the 14-year-old's body was found. Officers described her body as severely decomposed and said the strong smell of decay was attracting flies to the car. When police got a search warrant to open the front storage compartment of the Tesla, they found a black cadaver bag covered with insects. When they unzipped the bag, they saw a decomposed head and torso. It was after removing the cadaver bag from the vehicle that they realized the victim's arms and legs had been removed from her body. A second black cadaver bag was found beneath the first. Inside that bag were Rivas Hernandez's arms and legs. The court documents are part of the legal battle as David's family fought subpoenas served to them in their home state of Texas, ordering them to appear before the grand jury meeting in Los Angeles. Dawood and Colleen Burke, David's mother and father, as well as his brother Caleb, were ordered to travel to California earlier this month. The documents served to the family were redacted, but refers to David Burke as a target of the grand jury investigation. In court, the Burkes argued that the documentation they were given was insufficient because they didn't explain how their testimony would be material and necessary to the investigation. A Texas judge refused to quash those subpoenas. One of David's friends, streamer Neo Langston, was arrested last month after he failed to appear before the grand jury as a witness. So far, no charges have been filed in Rivas Hernandez's death. So, knowing this information, this is the way this is broken down. David Anthony Burke is formally identified as the target of an LA County grand jury investigating the murder of and dismemberment of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. This designation appears in newly unsealed court documents tied to efforts to compel his family's testimony. All right, we've heard the key facts. Prosecutors state that David may be involved in one count of murder and that Celeste may have been the victim of foul play. We know that his parents and brother were subpoenaed to testify. Their attempts to avoid appearing are what made the documents public. No indictment has been issued yet, but sources indicate the grand jury is nearing a completion. And for those of you who wondered Want to know what it means to be labeled as a target? It's not a charge. It's a legal term signaling prosecutors believe that the individual is likely to be indicted based on evidence already presented. This is the strongest indication to date of where this investigation is headed. David's representatives have said he is cooperating, but LAPD sources previously said the total opposite. The family is arguing that the subpoenas violate their rights. Prosecutors are arguing their testimony is critical to the timeline and movements around the abandoned Tesla. A security hold is remaining on the medical examiner's findings, limiting public visibility into the cause of death. The grand jury is focused on the following things: the chain of custody of the Tesla, who parked it and when, where David was during the window of death and disposal, the family's knowledge of his movements and communications, and witnesses who may have interacted with him before he left California. The subpoenas and interstate litigation show prosecutors are aggressively pursuing testimony from anyone in his orbit. This case is sitting at the intersection of celebrity, secrecy, and the brutal reality of a child's murder. A missing teen, a decomposing body, in a touring musician's car, a family fighting subpoenas. They're all creating a narrative of hidden violence colliding with public persona. So the bottom line, a 14-year-old girl vanished, and the truth about her final hours is now being pried loose through sealed documents, reluctant witnesses, and a grand jury that appears to be closing in. In the meantime, we wait, we watch, and we see what develops. Next on the docket for this Friday edition of The Final Word, convicted murderer Paul Canero is filing a notice of motion for a new trial. He's filing a notice of motion for a new trial because he believes deep down that somehow, some way, he was wrongly convicted. As you can see, this shot right here is when Paul Canero was found guilty on all charges against him in the Mansion murders trial. All right. Freehold, New Jersey. It's less than 2 weeks after he was convicted of murdering his sister-in-law, niece, and nephew. Paul Canero filed documents indicating he plans to appeal the jury's verdict. The jury found Paul guilty of all charges, including 4 counts of first-degree murder and aggravated arson in the deaths of Keith, Jennifer, Sophia, and Jesse Canero. He faces life in prison. His sentencing hearing is scheduled for May 12th. Paul Canero maintained his innocence at trial and accused the police of failing to adequately investigate other potential suspects, including a third Canero brother, Corey. The notice of motion for a new trial filed this week does not offer specifics about why Paul believes he deserves a new trial. Rather, it says, and I quote, "The defendant will rely upon oral argument, arguments previously raised before the court, and a forthcoming brief. Among the issues that may be raised was the defense's motion to change venue, which was denied ahead of trial. So this should be a short breakdown, but one nonetheless. His current status. Current status, we know just weeks that he was convicted. He for murdering his brother, his sister-in-law, and their 2 young children. He's filed a new motion for a new trial in Monmouth County, New Jersey. His attorney submitted the notice on February 23rd, 2026, signaling their intent to challenge the verdict and raise previously argued issues. So the the motion is procedural. Canero's as I mentioned, Canero's attorney state that he'll rely on oral arguments previously raised before the court, and a forthcoming brief that will outline the specifics for the new trial. The motion does not yet detail the alleged errors, but the defense has long argued that investigators ignored other potential suspects, including that third Canero brother, Corey, and the court wrongly denied their motion for a change of venue. So, this motion for a new trial is not unusual after a major conviction, but it signals the defense believes that the jury was exposed to prejudicial information, the court made legal errors, and and I say and or for a reason, and or the verdict was against the weight of the evidence. The judge will review the forthcoming brief and the state's response before making a ruling. Now, I say and or because it could be any one of those things, all three of those things, or any combination of those three things. Now, here's the points of tension. Paul Canero has maintained his innocence from the beginning, even as prosecutors presented extensive forensic, financial, and fire scene evidence. The community, especially friends of the children, has waited 7 years for accountability. And the guilty verdict was seen as long delayed justice. And anybody who knows me for the last few years, when I always say justice delayed doesn't mean justice denied. Any attempt to reopen this case risks reopening emotional wounds for surviving family and the Colts Neck community. As far as investigative and legal context goes, the state's case was built on the financial motive, those disputes over business funds and life insurance. The digital and physical evidence, disabled security systems, surveillance footage, and blood-stained clothing, and the fire investigation findings, 2 separate arsons tied back to Paul Canero. The defense will likely challenge the admissibility, interpretation, or presentation of this evidence in their upcoming brief. This is a case about family betrayal, family financial desperation, and a community forced to relive a nightmare for nearly a decade. The motion for a new trial doesn't erase the jury's verdict, but it does reopen the legal battle over one of New Jersey's most haunting crimes. After 7 years and a devastating verdict, the fight over what happened inside that Colts Neck mansion is still not over. So we're going to find out how the judge is going to rule upon that, and what Canero's sentence is going to look like on May 12th. Next up, a person of interest is named in the murders of an NYPD officer's parents. That person of interest, that very same NYPD officer. We are in Vero Beach, Florida for this case. A former police officer was arrested on charges, tried to flee from police after he was named a person of interest in his parents' murders. Officers with the Fort Pierce Police Department began investigating after Philip Rapace, age 85, and his wife, 80-year-old Joan Rapace, were found shot to death in their home. Officers said the couple was found with multiple gunshot wounds in the living room of their residence on February 24th. Investigators named the couple's adult son, Philip Rapace Jr., as a person of interest in the case. Approximately 2 months after his parents' bodies were found, a license plate reader alerted deputies in the neighboring Indian River County that the suspect's car was in the area. Deputies caught up with the Rapace's white Lexus SUV and activated license sirens. Officers said that Rapace neither accelerated nor decelerated after police indicated he should pull over. After approximately 3,000 feet, a deputy used his cruiser to perform a pit maneuver and disable Rapace's vehicle. He was then taken into custody without further incident. Rapace was born in New York and previously worked as an officer in the New York Police Department, according to WPBF. He was suspended from the department and fired from his position as a union trustee in 2005 after allegedly stealing money intended for delegates, according to the New York Post at that time. Rapace, as of this time, has not been charged for his parents' murders. All right. So let's run that back and let's see where things stand at the moment. So, former NYPD officer Philip Rapace Jr. has been officially named a person of interest in the murders of his parents. Parents 85-year-old Philip Rapace Sr. and 80-year-old Joan Rapace, who were found shot to death in their Florida home on February 24th, 2026. He has not been officially charged with the murders, but is in custody after a failed attempt to flee from law enforcement. Here are the facts. The victims were discovered in their living room with multiple gunshot wounds. Within 2 hours of the bodies being found, a license plate reader detected Rapace Jr.'s vehicle in a neighboring county. Deputies attempted a traffic stop. Rapace Jr. did not pull over, continuing at a steady speed for roughly 3,000 feet. A deputy executed the pit maneuver, disabled the vehicle, and Rapace Jr. was taken into custody without incident. As I mentioned, he previously served as an NYPD officer, but he was suspended and later fired in 2005 after allegations of stealing union funds. So the focus in the investigation, the detectives are working to establish the timeline of his parents' final hours, Rapace Jr.'s movements before and after the murders, the possible motive, including family, financial, or personal disputes, the ballistics and forensic evidence from the home, the digital evidence, including phone data and communications, and the rapid attempt to locate and stop Rapace Jr., suggesting investigators viewed him as immediately relevant to the case, thus naming him a person of interest. The points of tension, one, we already know that he's not been officially charged. Rapace Jr., we're talking about. But that still leaves a gap between suspicion and formal accusation. His attempt to flee questions about consciousness of guilt, but his legal team may argue panic or misunderstanding. And his history with the NYPD, including prior disciplinary issues, adds a layer of public scrutiny and contemplates perceptions of credibility. And for the record, just because you've been named a person of interest doesn't is not the same thing as being a suspect or being charged. It signals that investigators believe he has critical information. He is central to the timeline, or or he may be the primary focus of the investigation. So, what's the next steps? They could include a formal interrogation, search warrants being issued, the forensic analysis returns, and potential elevation to suspect status if the evidence supports it. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a story about family violence, betrayal, and the unsettling possibility that a former law enforcement officer may be tied to the deaths of his own parents. The image of an elderly couple shot in their living room, followed by their son's attempted flight, creates a narrative of fear, fractured, and unanswered questions. A family is gone. A son is under the microscope, and investigators are racing to determine whether this was a tragedy with a single point of origin or something more complicated. We will find out we'll find out exactly how that plays out as the investigation continues. Next up, an accused killer is found competent to stand trial even after removing his own eyeballs. So, what I'm going to do here for that one, I, in just a matter of moments, am going to make to um have the trigger warning scrolling across your screen here, because this one is definitely one of those cases that might be tricky to your mental health. So this one is definitely viewer and listener discretion advised strongly. Okay? Come on. Hmm. Okay, that should come up any second. Right. Now let me go ahead and get the screen back. And there we go. Now I can go ahead and give you the details. We are in Statesboro, Georgia, where a judge has found a man competent to stand trial on murder charges despite the fact that the defendant removed his own eyes. Robert Keller faces 10 charges, including malice murder, felony murder, and armed robbery in the death of Bruce Dupree, who was stabbed to death on October 14th, 2024. In a 2024 indictment, prosecutors alleged that he stabbed the victim in the neck before stealing his vehicle and cell phone. Keller's defense had argued he was insane at the time of the alleged murder, but two doctors who testified at a recent competency hearing both found him to be sane. The doctors evaluated him separately on the issues of criminal responsibility and competency to stand trial. The doctors, in their testimony, acknowledged that Keller removed both of his own eyeballs after his arrest and also bit off a portion of his own tongue. Dr. Jeremy Gay, who evaluated Keller for criminal responsibility, found the acts of self harm not to be relevant because they happened after the murder. Dr. Daniel Fass, in evaluating Keller for his competency to stand trial, described the defendant during the interview as cooperative, polite, apathetic, depressed, and hopeless, but without symptoms of severe, persistent mental illness. Fass suggested that Keller's behaviors were the result of a guilt and or shame response. Two corrections officers testified at the hearing that the defendant told them he wanted to go to a medical prison. He was not mental, and that he said he heard voices to cover his ass. No trial date has been scheduled at this time. While I try to catch myself here, I'm gonna go ahead and get myself set to break this one down for you, because even I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. The current status of the case is that right now Keller, as I've mentioned, is facing a long list of charges: malice murder, felony murder, armed robbery, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, hijacking a motor vehicle, and possession of a weapon during a felony. The ruling on the competency came in earlier this month, following a January hearing where two state-employed forensic psychologists evaluate him. And as I've mentioned earlier, no trial date has been set. The is this: two separate evaluations were conducted. First, there's the criminal responsibility evaluation. Dr. Jeremy Gay concluded that Keller was not suffering from a delusional compulsion at the time of the crime and could distinguish right from wrong. Then there's the competency evaluation. Dr. Daniel Fass found Keller understood the court process, showed no signs of schizophrenia or bipolar disorder, and demonstrated cognitive functioning better than a lot of the people he evaluates. The self mutilation was deemed not relevant to his mental state at the time of the killing because it occurred after his arrest. The key facts about the underlying murder: the victim was 43-year-old Bruce Dupree. He was found on the side of I-16 in October 2024 with multiple stab wounds. Investigators say Keller was located shortly after at a motel, with witnesses reporting blood on his hands and on the cash he used. A grand jury indicted him in 2024. So getting back to the self-harm, why does that matter and why didn't it change the ruling? Keller's actions were extreme, absolutely, but the court weighed them against the timing, the self-harm which occurred long after the alleged murder, the motive. Psychologists testified it appeared tied to guilt or shame, not psychosis, and statements to jail staff. Keller reportedly said he was not mental, admitted to faking hearing voices, and expressed a desire to be transferred to a medical prison. These details undercut the defense's argument that he was legally insane. So, what are the investigators and prosecutors focused on next? The ruling clears the way for pretrial motions, jury selection, and a full presentation of forensic evidence, including the stabbing, the alleged robbery, and Keller's movements before the arrest. Because competency is now settled, the case moves forward without delay. This is one of those cases where the shock value of the self-harm risks overshadowing the legal reality. A man accused of a brutal roadside killing tried to disfigure himself in custody, but the court says he still knew exactly what he was doing, both then and now. So we will find out what happens next as this one continues. We got one in a cold case file. According to court documents, the mother of baby Jane Doe, who was found on a New York road 33 years ago, confessed to killing the crying newborn. 33 years and finally a confession. And here is Mother Dearest, Denise Merker. Here's what you need to know. Denise Merker charged with murder in the death of her newborn baby. Baby Jane Doe was found dead on the side of the road in 1993. Merker allegedly confessed to the crime earlier this month, telling a detective, "I did it," according to a felony complaint obtained by People magazine. And it's a good thing I kept the trigger warning up, because even this would set me off, or anybody else, for that matter. I did it. Those are the words 55-year-old Denise Merker allegedly said to police while confessing to the killing of her newborn baby in 1993. That's according to a copy of her felony complaint obtained by People magazine. Merker is now charged with second-degree murder in the cold case, which police have been trying to solve for the past 33 years. Baby Jane Doe was found dead on the side of the road on September 27, 1993, in Culverton, New York, a hamlet located approximately 70 miles east of on Long Island. On February 2nd, 2026, Merker allegedly admitted to committing the crime while speaking with a detective from the Suffolk County Police Department. The complaint states that Merker told the detective, "In sum and substance, I did it. I did everything." Merker then allegedly added, per the complaint, "I put the paper towel in the baby's mouth because she was crying." The complaint contains no additional information about the alleged crime. Merker was booked into custody the following day. She has remained at the Suffolk County Correctional Facility since that time. Merker is expected to make her first appearance on March 2nd. That's Monday. That's coming Monday, after her first two scheduled court dates were postponed for unknown reasons. She has not yet entered a plea, and her lawyer did not respond to a request for comment. The newborn was found on the side of the road in a bed, and police were not able to determine the parents of the child at the time, as DNA testing for forensic cases was still in its early years. It's not clear why Merker allegedly confessed to killing her child now, 33 years after the newborn's death. Let's break this down a little, and if we can all stomach. A 55-year-old Long Island woman, Denise Reichman Merker, has now confessed to killing her newborn daughter in 1993, bringing resolution to a case that haunted Suffolk County for more than 3 decades. Her admission, "I did it. I did everything," appears in newly filed court documents and a recorded interview with detectives. Highway workers found the infant, known only as Baby Jane Doe, inside a trash bag discarded in a field off Route 25 in Culverton in September 1993. Investigators had no way to identify the child or her mother, and forensic tools of the early 1990s offered little help. The case remained open but stagnant for decades. Merkel was arrested on February 2nd, 2026, after Suffolk County detectives revisited the cold case and conducted a recorded interview. According to the criminal complaint, she admitted placing a paper towel in the newborn's mouth when the baby began crying, causing the child's death. She reiterated responsibility multiple times during questioning. Merker has been charged with second-degree murder and is being held at the Suffolk County Correctional Facility. She has entered a not guilty plea despite the recorded confession. Her first scheduled court appearance was postponed with a new date set for March 2nd. So, what are the investigators focusing on now? Detectives are continuing to examine how the case was revived and what evidence, including possible DNA analysis, led them back to Merker. The full context of her statements and whether they align with physical evidence, and any additional witnesses or records from 1993 that may now be relevant. Although prosecutors have not publicly detailed the forensic breakthrough, the renewed attention and modern evidence review were key to reopening the file. This case embodies the long shadow of an unnamed child whose life ended before it began. For 33 years, baby Jane Doe had no identity, no answers, and above all else, no justice. The confession reframes the tragedy, not an anonymous abandonment, but a deliberate act, now tied to a mother who lived with the secret for decades. This is a collision of silence, shame, and accountability, and a reminder that even the coldest cases can speak again. Next up, two men, one wearing a MAGA hat, accused of setting a woman's boots on fire and making anti-black statements. Oh boy. First of all, let me say this before I even get into this story. This is new. This is a legal and true crime article. This is not a political article. I am not engaging in any political arguments at this time. Now, having said that, here are the two defendants, Michael Santiago on your left and Michael James on your right. You can't miss Michael James because he's wearing that red Make America Great Again baseball cap. Here's what you need to know. The two men were arrested after being accused of lighting a woman's boots on fire and making anti-black statements. The two men were identified by the NYPD as Michael Santiago, age 31, and Michael James, age 33. One of the men, here's the Here's the article. Two men were arrested on hate crime and arson charges after police alleged they set a woman's boots on fire after making anti black statements. Prior to the arrests, police shared photos of the two men, one of whom was holding a phone on a tripod, while the other was wearing a red MAGA hat. The men were subsequently identified as Michael Santiago, age 31, and 33-year-old Michael James, who both apparently live at the same address in New York, according to the New York City Police Department. The incident occurred February 19th near the Chelsea neighborhood of Manhattan, according to police. The victim, a 54-year-old woman, was approached by the two men, according to claims by the NYPD. One of the individuals engaged the victim in conversation and leaned in to kiss her, police said in the press release. The victim pushed him away, after which the individual proceeded to make anti-black statements toward her. According to police, the victim tried to leave the scene, but the suspects tried to prevent her, then allegedly brandished a lighter and set her boots on fire. No injuries were reported. Santiago and James were both booked on charges of attempted assault, hate crime, criminal mischief, hate crime, and 3 counts of aggravated harassment, attempted assault, menacing hate crime, criminal mischief, arson, menacing, and criminal tampering. It is not clear if the Manhattan District Attorney's Office has officially filed charges yet. So let's break that down, all right? A 54-year-old woman in Manhattan was targeted in what police are calling a hate-motivated attack, where two men, one wearing a MAGA hat, allegedly set her boots on fire after making anti-black statements. Both suspects have now been arrested and charged. The incident unfolded on February 19th in the Chelsea neighborhood of Manhattan, according to the NYPD. The two men, 31-year-old Michael Santiago and 33-year-old Michael James, approached a woman on the street. One of those men leaned in to kiss her when she pushed him away. He began making anti-black remarks. As she tried to walk off, the men blocked her path. One suspect then pulled out a lighter and set her boots on fire, causing a brief flame before it went out. The second suspect recorded the encounter with a phone on a tripod/selfie stick, suggesting the attack may have been intended for online content. The woman was not physically injured, but the act is being treated as a bias-driven assault. Why is it being prosecuted as a hate crime? Police say the suspects used racial slurs, including the N-word, and made sexually explicit, racially charged comments toward the victim. That combination of targeting a black woman, using racist language, and committing arson and attempted assault meets a threshold for hate crime enhancements under New York law. Both Santiago and James, just to recap what they're being charged with, it's a long list. Attempted assault, hate crime. Criminal mischief, hate crime. Aggravated harassment. Menacing, hate crime. Arson, and criminal tampering. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office has not yet confirmed which of those charges will proceed to indictment. But there's a broader context that the investigators are examining. Detectives are looking at whether the men have a pattern of harassing pedestrians, as police say they had been bothering others that same day. Whether the recording was intended for social media content, which could elevate the case's public safety concerns, or whether additional victims may come forward now that the suspects have been identified. This is a case where public harassment escalated into racially targeted violence, captured on video and amplified by the suspect's own behavior. The MAGA hat becomes part of the visual narrative, but the core issue is racial intimidation weaponized in broad daylight. A woman walking down the street was targeted because of her race, mocked, harassed, and her boots set on fire, and the men responsible treated it like content. Hate crimes don't start with the flames, they start with permission. Next up, this one hits mate. An Oregon minister, son in a home invasion. Now, 5 teens are facing murder charges. Mm. Oh, this is sad. This is sad. This is sad. Here's what you need to know. Oregon minister Kevin Cooper was shot in a home invasion in November 2025. He died more than a month later. 5 teens are now facing multiple felony charges in connection with his death. Cooper's brother said Kevin was protecting his 4-year-old grandson at the time of the shooting. The article from People magazine says that 5 teens are now facing multiple felony charges in connection with the death of an Oregon minister who was shot while protecting his grandson. Authorities said 56-year-old Kevin Cooper died on December 12, 2025, more than a month after he was shot multiple times during a home invasion in the 9300 block of Southeast Ramona Street in Portland around 12:30 a.m. on November 1st, 2025. Since the shooting, detectives with the Enhanced Community Safety Team have been pursuing leads, gathering evidence, interviewing witnesses, and conducting other investigative work to identify who was responsible for the crime, according to a Portland Police Bureau press release on February 24, 2026. They determined that 5 suspects invaded Mr. Cooper's home and shot him in front of his family members. Cooper's brother told KOIN Channel 6, my home news station, that the suspects allegedly knocked on the door and pretended to be police before they broke down the door. He said Kevin, a minister at People of Purpose Family Worship Center, was protecting his 4-year-old grandson when he was shot. This is all according to Coin 6. According to the police press release, Zaire Carter and Tydavian C. Burton are facing multiple charges, including first-degree murder, assault in the first-degree burglary, and recklessly endangering another person. Jaden J. Saranana, Jordan Perkins, and a juvenile male are facing multiple charges, including second-degree murder, first-degree assault, and first-degree burglary. The death of Kevin Cooper is a tragedy in every way, said Police Chief Bob Day of the Portland Police Bureau. While nothing can bring him back, I sincerely hope that these arrests are a step in healing for his family. Multnomah County Deputy District Attorney Eric Palmer said, according to a press release, "We cannot tolerate this growing rate of violence among youth and young adults. Kevin Cooper should still be with his grandchildren, his wife, and his church. We look forward to delivering justice for Mr. Cooper's family, holding these men accountable, and doing our part to prevent further acts of violence. It is unclear if the suspects have entered a plea or retained attorneys. But apparently, this investigation is not over. So I'm shouting out to everyone in the Portland, Oregon area. If you have any information about this case, you are asked to to contact the Portland Police Bureau via email at the following address: homicide tips. Let me go ahead and put this down for you. If I can get back here to do so, I will put this down. All right, here we go. Give me just a minute to get to the top. Yes. If you have any information on this case, okay. All right. So that's not what's supposed to pop up. There we go. That's what I was looking for. Come on. That's right. Bring it back. Bring it back. All right. Now, hmm. Come on. There we go. That's what I was looking for. If you have any information on this case, you're asked to give your tips in through homicide tips at police.portlandoregon.gov or call 503-823-0479 and reference the case number 25-299-606. Again, that's homicide tips at police.portlandoregon.gov or 503-823-0479, case number 25-299-606. Every bit of information you give in this case helps a bunch. And for tonight, if I can get my docket loaded back up. Okay. All right. The biggest piece of testimony coming from the Corey Richards case. The housekeeper's testimony saying that Corey Richards asked for the quote unquote Michael. Okay. There we go. All right, we are in City, Utah to wrap this week up. Corey Richardson's housekeeper provided the first bombshell of the days-old trial on Thursday, testifying her to buy drugs multiple times before Eric Richards was found dead. Carmen Lauber took the stand after the midday lunch break and admitted to speaking with investigators on the case without immunity because she felt guilty about her possible role in Eric's death. When they told me Eric had passed away, they mentioned it was from an overdose. That hit hard, if that's what happened. I needed to step up and take accountability of my part in this, Lauber said on the stand. While being questioned by the state, Lauber claimed Corey asked her for drugs 4 separate times and gave the okay to purchase fentanyl with the money she provided. Richards later returned, asking Lauber for something stronger, specifically saying she wanted the Michael Jackson stuff in regards to drugs. During her testimony, Lauber explained how she acquired the stronger drugs from the same dealer she had been using throughout. Lauber testified that she confronted Corey Richards after Eric's death, but that Corey explained what had happened. I said, "Please, tell me these pills were not for him," she said. She said, "No, they were not. He passed away from a brain aneurysm," she said. Day 4 of the trial started off in the morning with the defense team's final cross-examination of lead crime scene investigator Chelsea Gibson. She revealed that the team returned to Richards' home on November 7, 2024, on a search warrant to collect a letter found at the foot of Eric Richards' side of the bed. Gibson confirmed that the letter was not there the night of the crime, nor during several searches prior. Toxicologist Dr. Brianna Peterson was next to take the stand and testified that a lethal dosage of fentanyl can be 3 nanograms per milliliter and confirmed Eric's body had 15 nanograms in it. She also revealed that fentanyl, was found in Eric's gastric testing, which typically means the fentanyl came from an illicit source. Peterson testified that 1,900 milligrams of alcohol was also found in Eric's body, and that 14,000 milligrams typically represents the amount of a standard drink, meaning he had well below that amount in his system. But it was unclear whether that alcohol came from a drink or his body's decomposition. Detective Frank Root later testified to collecting 2 phones from Robert Grossman, Corey Richards' boyfriend, for evidence, but they were both inoperable at the time. Root said Grossman told him that he had broke both phones by accident. However, Root shared how he later obtained the phones and they became operable. Brian Holden with the Utah State Crime Lab was in charge of testing a plethora of items taken into evidence for fentanyl. He testified that he did not find any fentanyl on the items that had been submitted. When asked by the defense if he tested an empty pill bottle of hydrocodone, Holden said there was no empty bottle submitted for him to test. So I'm going to break that down, and I also owe you guys a breakdown of the previous story. So just give me just a moment or two, and I will begin that breakdown. All right, let me begin back with the Oregon minister who was shot. I'll start there first, and then we'll hit the testimony of the housekeeper in the Corey Richards trial. The killing of Pastor Kevin Cooper, a 57-year-old Portland minister who died shielding his 4-year-old grandson, has now resulted in 5 teenagers being charged, a case that has shaken Oregon because of both its brutality and its symbolism. Police say the teens pretended to be police officers, banging on the door of Cooper's southeast Portland home just after midnight on November 1st, 2025. When Cooper opened the door, they forced their way in, and as he moved to protect his grandson, they shot him multiple times in front of his family. He survived for more than a month before dying on December 12th of 2025. A Multnomah County grand jury has indicted 4 adults and 1 juvenile. Zaire E. Carter, age 19, charged with first-degree murder and multiple weapons charges. 18-year-old Tydavian C. Burton, charged with first-degree murder and weapons charges. 18-year-old Jaden J. Serenata, charged with second-degree murder, assault, and burglary. 18-year-old Jordan C. Perkins, charged with second-degree murder, assault, and burglary. And an unnamed 17-year-old, charged with second-degree murder and related felonies. All 5 are also tied to other robberies and violent crimes committed before the shooting. Several were already under investigation by Portland's Enhanced Community Safety Team and the Major Crimes Unit for unrelated armed robberies. So how did the investigators connect the teens? The arrests came in waves. The first, Carter and Burton were taken into custody 6 days after the shooting on unrelated attempted murder and robbery charges. The second wave, Serenata and the juvenile were arrested in January during a series of search warrants. And the third wave, Perkins, was captured in February with help from the U.S. Marshal Service. Detectives from multiple units, Homicide, ECST, MCU, CERT, and CNT, pooled evidence, interviews, and surveillance to link the teens to the home invasion. Prosecutors are emphasizing this. They have been blunt. This case represents the growing violence among youth and young adults in Portland. They've stressed that Cooper should still be alive, with his grandchildren, his wife, and his church, and that the charges reflect the seriousness of the coordinated home invasion. So, why does this case resonate so deeply in Oregon? Cooper wasn't just a victim, he was a minister, a grandfather, and a protector. The image of a pastor dying while shielding a child in his own home cuts directly into the heart of community safety and faith centered family life, especially in a state where church leaders often serve as stabilizing anchors. The case also highlights a disturbing pattern: youth driven armed robberies escalating into lethal violence, with teens moving in coordinated groups and using impersonation tactics to gain access to homes. So, what comes next? All five suspects remain in custody: the adults in Multnomah County Jail, the juvenile in a youth facility. Additional charges may be filed as investigators continue linking the group to other robberies and shootings across Portland. Just thinking about that particular case, I I'm trying to imagine my beloved pastor in that same situation. He talks high, he speaks so highly and so lovingly about his own grandchildren. I can't imagine. I can't imagine my pastor being shot like that, being killed like that, being only for him to survive one extra month before going home to glory, as we say in the church. And as for seeking justice, I know that entire family will be doing everything they could to seek justice for him. Just as I believe that the Cooper family are going to do everything they can to seek justice for that grandfather, for that protector, for that minister, for that man of God. My deepest sympathies are with the Cooper family right now. And again, I shout out my local news station, Coin 6, for their coverage in this story. Now, now to the breakdown of the housekeeper's testimony in the Corey Richards case. A housekeeper testified that Corey Richards asked for the Michael Jackson stuff, allegedly referring to a powerful opioid similar to what killed the pop star. Prosecutors say this request came shortly before Eric Richards' fatal fentanyl poisoning. So why does that matter? This testimony goes directly to intent. Prosecutors are trying to show Corey wasn't confused, overwhelmed, or experimenting. They're arguing that she was shopping for a fatal dose. And the larger pattern is that the state is building a narrative of calculated steps: financial motive, prior poisoning attempts, and now a request for a drug associated with a high profile overdose. The defense continues to insist that the state is twisting coincidences into a conspiracy. This case is going to continue on Monday, and we will be sure to keep an eye on things all the way until we reach a verdict. Now, tomorrow on Saturday night's main event, I, I will pick up from where I left off. So I'm going to hold off on my closing argument tonight. I'm going to pick up from where I left off, and I will be sure to come back with the rest of what I have on this docket. And on Sunday, the first Sunday of the month of March, I will start off my very first ever first Sunday focus. And what am I going to be focusing on? To nobody's surprise, I'm covering Nancy Guthrie. I'm gonna dig deep, and I'm gonna figure out we're gonna figure out exactly just what in the world is going on with that case and where we stand at this particular time. But for now, I want to thank you all so much for being here this evening. I want to I hope you will be here tomorrow night. It won't be late night. That I promise you. It won't be late night. But I hope you will be here tomorrow for Saturday night's main event, where, like I said, I'm going to pick up from where I left off here. So please follow me all over social media. You can find me on Facebook at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded, on X at EKB316, all caps, YouTube at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded, Instagram EKB316, all lowercase, TikTok at King of Hearts 316 2021, or you can email me at King of Hearts 316 _09 at outlook.com. I want to say thank you for joining me here. If you liked everything you saw and heard tonight, you're asked to like, share, subscribe, drop comments to support Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. This is the free way to support the channel. If I can go up further. If you wish to make a financial contribution, it's only to keep this little engine that could running. So if you wish to make a financial contribution, you can support us through PayPal at EKB316 or Cash App, cash.app $EKB316. And as a good friend of mine would say, nothing is obligated, but it's always appreciated. All right, let's go ahead and let's put the final bow on this until tomorrow night. Guns N' Roses always said in their most famous song, "Do you know where you are? You're in the jungle, baby." Well, in my case, do you know where you are? You're in the drama-free true crime destination. This is your home for true crime news without all the drama, where your opinions matter, lively debates are encouraged, your voice is heard, and above all else, justice is served. And there's only one way we do this, ladies and gentlemen. We do this with no gimmicks, no drama, and most certainly no BS. I'm Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw. Thank you all. Thank you once again so much. I can't do this without you. And let's do this tomorrow night, Saturday night's main event. And we're going to get up out of here right now, all right? So until then, I'm out of here. And as you can see at the very bottom of the screen, this is Bethea'S Byte. And It's Reloaded. Thank you so much for joining me here at the Drama-Free True Crime Destination. Thank you so much for joining me here at the Drama-Free True Crime Destination. Please be sure to follow Bethea'S Byte Reloaded all over social media and support the channel through PayPal and Cash App. You can get your true crime news right here with no gimmicks, no drama, and no BS. This is Bethea'S Byte, and it's Reloaded.